and welcome to the Unserious Science Podcast, the podcast where we celebrate LGBTQ plus people in STEM and ask them to comment and discuss and tell us something interesting or weird or misconstrued about their particular area of research. I am one of your co-hosts, Dr. Rebecca Smith, aka Bex.
I'm the other one. I'm Dr. Eleanor Townsend.
I like the first time we did this intro. It was very like we were nervous, and now we're just vibing.
This is why I told you a nonsense story to warm us up.
Obviously, last time I spoke a lot at length about Jurassic Park, and we have, hopefully, by now, I haven't edited it yet, down to about 45 minutes, but we did talk for about 2.5 hours about that and a lot of other things. I imagine this is going to go very similarly.
Hey, I have points to get through.
I had a lot of points, but we just ended up talking about birds forever.
Yeah, I do like birds. That's the problem.
Yeah, me too. But this time, Eleanor is going to be talking through something that interests her or she finds strange. So why don't you get into it, Eleanor?
So my background is in microbiology. So microbiology is the study of living organisms that you can see down a microscope and not with the naked eye. Now that comes with a few clarifiers already. Some of the things, there is a slight debate over whether or not they're alive. So I won't get into that too much.
What is the definition of life, Eleanor?
Well, you know, if you say that something can reproduce by itself and create sort of offspring or progeny, but viruses and some bacteria, prions, these all like require a host organism to reproduce in.
Yeah.
So are they alive? It's a whole field of study. I was going to say field of fuddy. Field of study.
Does it stem into philosophy?
It does get very theoretical and sort of, but you know, for the purpose of this,
these are all microbes.
that's what I'm talking about. So my background is in kind of communities of microorganisms that live together. The title of my thesis was either like interkingdom or polymicrobial, I can't remember, but I looked at sort of fungi coexisting with bacteria inside of chronic wounds, and they sort of help each other out.
They're friends.
They're friends, they are. They have like a symbiotic relationship, sometimes, not always, and there's lots of interesting things about that. So I feel like, do you have a little bit of expertise across different kingdoms of life? When you've got the tree of life, like bacteria under prokaryota or whatever, fungi come under eukaryota, which is the same, you know, animals and plants then branch off that as well. Viruses, again, don't really sit on the tree of life. They're a bit separate. Are they alive?
Well, that's what I'm going to ask. If they're not on the tree.
Not the point of this podcast. Let's get back on track. And then I think the last thing to say about microbiology is, you know, even though we were talking about fungi, microbiology really is sort of the microscopic fungi. So we're talking, I mean, you can see some sort of like macro structures. So like molds and yeast rather than like mushrooms and toadstools.
Okay, right.
Although I'm going to break this by talking about one that does form mushrooms, I think.
It's fine. We're talking about what this area is about. So we can go slightly into the fantastical, I'm sure.
Yeah, fantastical sidestep. So this is actually one of the things that got me into microbiology, was kind of sort of zombie and vampire sort of epidemiology.
Really?
Yeah, so the book that I read when I was in sixth form college was The Strain. It's by Chuck Hogan and Guillermo del Toro, did I say that right?
Guillermo
del Toro. Yeah, so they wrote this book called The Strain. It's a trilogy. The plot of this story is like a plane lands and all the people on it are dead apart from like a few. Then it turns out they've been infected with this like vampiric germ or whatever you want to call it. So they call in like the epidemiology team, and that just really like solidified my like interest in microbiology. So
the cool guys come in.
Yeah, and then they sort of, you know, it's a bit of detective work, like how is this spreading, what's going on, and that was something that really interested me for microbiology, and then built a whole career on it.
Well, like microbiology is quite common in media generally, right? Like when I was growing up, things like Outbreak and movies like that were talking about virology and pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, I really love microbiology, so I was very pleased to get the opportunity to talk about it more.
That's what we're for here.
That's right. So I'm going to talk about sort of zombie films. what I'm going to talk about is kind of like the dawn of the modern zombie, which is the sort of Hollywoodification of zombies. So this really started with a George Romero film, Night of the Living Dead, 1968.
Fantastic movie.
Yeah, not actually seen it.
The joy of any of the Night of the Living Dead films is that they're never about the thing that they're about.
Okay.
So zombie movies, like Night of the Living Dead, is a lot about like racism and othering and things like that. So it's very cool.
Yeah. So that was kind of like the sort of introduction of this like modern concept of zombies. And then they had like a real like resurgence in like the mid 1990s as well, because there's like Resident Evil franchise.
Love them as well.
And then like House of the Living Dead as well. No, House of the Dead. In like recent years, it's kind of become a bit more of like a humanization of zombies. So we've seen things like Corpse Bride, which is very cute. I love that one. Warm Bodies, which I haven't watched, but it's got Nicholas Hoult in. And American Gods, which I've read the book.
Love American Gods.
Yeah, we won't talk about the author though. And then I think it's important to sort of recognize that a lot of these sort of popularizations of outbreak films came alongside disease outbreaks. So we're thinking Ebola in 1976, AIDS in 1980. Then there was quite a lot of flu around in the mid-90s, SARS in 2003. And then I don't know if I need to recap what happened in 2020. When you have these, there's a lot of sort of different sort of culprits or like agents behind causing the sort of zombie outbreaks. So the ones that I'm going to talk about are bacteria, fungus, prions, and virus, because those are the microbiology ones. So there's different things that cause pathogens to be more or less successful in their sort of pathogenesis, or like how risky they are. So one of those is sort of mode of transmission, how it transfers from one person to the next person. The other one is the timing of transmission. So pathogens tend to be a bit more successful if they can be transmitted while not actually making you ill. Because then you can spread it around a bit more. If you're immediately sort of bedbound or dead, then it doesn't give them that chance to spread.
Makes sense, because you'd be moving around more if you're not feeling unwell.
Yeah.
And you'd be coughing on your office mate.
Yeah, exactly. So there's lots of examples of that, but I'll just sort of, these are the ratings that we're going through on these sort of ones. And then the other one is sort of host population characteristics. You've got to kind of have like a susceptible population. So for instance, if you've got a vaccinated population, you're not going to be successful transferring across all of those, infecting people. Sometimes people might be more genetically predisposed to a disease or genetically more resistant to a disease. There's lots of things like that. So you've got to have a susceptible population as well.
Okay, perfect.
The first microorganism that I'm going to cover is bacteria.
Old, reliable.
These are my favourite, I think. Bacteria. I'm a bacteria boy. What can I say? and now I'm just going to slate them. I'm going to be like, I love them, but they're not going to.
Well, you know, nothing's perfect.
So the only example of bacteria causing a zombie outbreak is Gear by Junji Ito.
Oh, okay.
So he's a horror manga author. Now, they don't specifically ever call it a bacteria. They just call it a germ throughout. But obviously, this has been translated from Japanese to English. You do kind of get the feeling it is a bacteria. So yeah, germ is a kind of non-specific term. But I'm going to go ahead and assume that it means bacteria. Good examples of bacterial epidemics, just to sort of prove that bacteria can spread about. We've got Yersinia pestis, or like the plague, Black Plague.
Black Plague,
yeah. So
bubonic plague, same thing?
Yeah, I think so. It can infect and sort of cause like a couple of different sort of outcomes. So a bubo is one, which is why it's bubonic plague. So also another good example of outbreaks is like Vibrio cholera. So cholera did actually sort of accelerate the Western field of epidemiology.
Yes.
Because of John Snow with the water pumps in London.
Really interesting story.
Yeah, I love it. You can go see the water pump.
Can you?
Yeah, it's still there. It's just kind of in the middle of the street with a little plaque by it.
Saying this pump was responsible for God knows how many infections / deaths. Nice.
These bacterial epidemics that I've just mentioned might have noticed they're quite old-timey. So a couple of the things that sort of prevent bacterial epidemics now, we've got good treatments available, antibiotics. Relative to other microorganisms, bacteria do multiply quite slowly. For some bacteria, they sort of double. They all grow asexually. Some of them double within about 20 minutes, some of them significantly longer. but the mutation rate, they have sort of quite rigorous sort of replication. So they don't make too many mistakes when they replicate. So things do tend to be clonal. The rate of mutation compared to some of the other things that I'm going to talk about is low.
That's interesting because, when things relatively replicate, there is more chance for things to go wrong because you're duplicating your genome, splitting off. That's really interesting that they're quite robust in replication.
Yeah, relatively. I mean, if you put pressure on them through, they evolve very quickly to antibiotic pressure, but a lot of the time as well, that comes at a fitness cost. They will adapt to survive the antibiotic, but then they'll be less pathogenic. It's less virulent and less able to cause disease. So it's all a bit of a trade-off. They can also be transmitted through many routes, so contacts, with blisters or sores. They can be transferred through droplets if you cough or sneeze on someone. Any sort of bodily secretion can get bacteria over. So lots of different options for transmission.
Do they mainly survive, like say, in droplets, in some sort of liquid or contact?
So tuberculosis bacteria can survive in an aerosol droplet for up to 8 hours, circulating in the room. They're a bit of a unique bacteria because they have quite a thick outer wall with the mycolic acids, so they are particularly sort of resistant in the environment. Other bacteria are able to form spores, so Clostridium difficile. It's then very able to survive sort of disinfectants and other sort of harsh environmental factors. So it persists on surfaces in hospitals. You can then, if you swallow it, it can then infect your guts. Lovely environment for it when it has the right conditions. It comes out of these spores, replicates, and gives you either diarrhea or my favourite disease name, toxic megacolon.
Toxic megacolon.
Yeah, so basically...
sounds like the worst.
Oh, it's bad. It's fatal. It's really...
Really?
It's a great name, but a fatal disease. So basically it causes such massive inflammation and cell death in the intestines that your intestines fill up with gas and then your bowels can perforate. And it's really bad.
Sorry, I was just pulling faces of disgust at Eleanor.
Microbiology is not the most glamorous specialty. There's lots of sort of and then your bowels explode and you die.
Fun, with thumbs up.
Yeah, so lots of ways to be transmitted.
Okay, great.
There's also, they don't really have too strict host requirements, so they can infect other animals. I've just mentioned persistent in the environment as well, so there's lots of different things. You've got a pet dog, it could also be infected by bacteria.
Zoonosis?
Zoonosis, so that's when it jumps species barriers.
That's something I remember from my degree.
I'll come back to that later. So they quite often, compared to other pathogens, they do cause death generally quite quickly, which then limits the spread.
Yes.
Because...
you don't have time to infect anyone
else. You don't have time to infect anybody else. Yeah, they're not the best for causing massive zombie outbreaks. On my scale, on the scoring chart that I have given it, out of a potential 5 stars, bacteria have 1. They're not gonna have that massive change very rapidly to do the sort of zombification process. If we're talking they need some sort of reanimation, massive toxin production, that's a massive jump for a bacteria to make that it can't do rapidly.
Okay.
1 star for trying.
You tried, sticker.
Love you, bacteria. Try again.
It's not your forte.
So the next one I'm going to talk about is fungi. You will see a pattern. They get more likely as I go on.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. So with fungi, there are more examples of sort of fungal zombification. So we've got The Last of Us, The Girl with All the Gifts, which I haven't seen.
I've read it.
Okay.
I haven't seen the film. I remember it being very depressing, unsurprisingly. Okay. It was a long time ago.
Some Resident Evil
My beloved.
films, games are fungi, but not all. So the fungi, we do have some real-life examples of fungal zombification, and I know at least The Last of Us is based on one of these fungi. So it's cordyceps and Ophiocordyceps. So they're 2 related genera of fungi, just slightly different mechanisms.
Yeah, so in The Last of Us, they actually look like mushrooms.
Yeah, so I think The Last of Us is based on cordyceps.
Yes,
I believe. Yeah. So I'll explain a little bit more, but I'll do the sort of micro first. So examples of fungal epidemics. So not loads. So we have Xerohelium rostratum.
Very good.
Thank you. I did Latin GCSE. So this one, it contaminated some injectable steroids. So it wasn't actually able to sort of infect people directly. It kind of got injected into them accidentally. So it's obviously a outbreak, but it's not sort of doing the infection itself.
It's like a human error?
Yeah.
Right.
It was contaminated steroids that got injected into people. So that's kind of like an opportunistic pathogen sort of thing. The other example of a fungal epidemic is Candida auris. So Candida, you see these in a lot of human infections. So Candida albicans is like one of the main species. It causes like thrush, both oral and vaginal. But it also causes like blood infections and stuff. So Candida auris is related to this. It's fairly like a new discovery, whether it emerged newly. So it's about 2017-ish it was first discovered, but it's extremely drug resistant. So it's not very susceptible to any of the antifungal drugs that we currently have.
That's terrifying.
Yeah, it's also pretty resistant to disinfectants.
Oh, even more? Great.
Yeah, it's quite scary. Now, the thing about Candida and other fungi, your innate immune system is pretty good at dealing with fungi. Every time we breathe in, we're bombarded with fungal spores. Obviously, at some point, you do start having reactions to them, but our innate immune system is set up very well to deal with fungal spores, fungal cells.
Great.
So that's not too bad. So normally with these fungal infections, you see them with people who have a bit of a lessened immune response. So in people who have weakened immune responses for whatever reasons, whether that's like a co-infection with HIV, or they've had an organ transplant, so they're on immunosuppressants, stuff like that, or they're just generally unwell. And the same with this Xerohelium, we're breaching the barriers for them. So like we're putting needles into their skin, and that's how the fungi are getting into the bloodstream, because we're putting the needle through.
So how, obviously in bacteria, like you're saying, they reproduce and there's maybe selection pressure or whatever to evolve in some way. Is that the same in fungus or fungi?
Yeah, there'll still be pressures to evolve. They do replicate slightly differently because they're eukaryotes, fungi. So they do have chromosomes as well. So it's slightly different. They don't mutate at the same rate that bacteria would, but they can have some weird things. But species cross jumps are less with fungi because they have quite strict temperature regulations. So they have like smaller windows of which they can replicate. So it's a little bit harder for them to jump between species and things.
Is that because we are naturally different temperatures as people, or is it just that they can't survive?
So I think it could like infect mammals, but not insects, or insect, but not mammals. This will become relevant on my next point. We can also, there are some like really horrific fungi that you can catch from the environment, but they're not transmitted person to person. So most of the time it's like people going into bat caves in like tropical areas, and they breathe in something off the floor when they disturb, the dust on the floor and the dirt on the floor, and maybe it's in the bat poo, and they breathe it in, and it sets up home in their sinuses, infects their face, and then they're kind of screwed.
Infects their face?
Yeah, so one of the first face transplants was this bloke who, he was working on like Texan airfields, but he breathed it in from the dirt because, the aeroplanes were going, whipping up all the dirt. And then it set up home in his sinuses and
just destroyed
his face. So it was one of the sort of modern face transplants, was this bloke.
I wasn't expecting to have new nightmares from this podcast.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
No, that's really interesting though. I didn't realise that like, one, there was a fungi that could like essentially eat your face. And two, that was the reason for the first face transplant.
Well, it's
or one
debatable,
of the first.
like modern transplants as well, because there's a lot of syphilis and things. But that wouldn't be transmittable person to person. See, you'd have to breathe in the same dirt. Okay. So not very outbreaky. Do you see what I'm getting at
Unless
there?
everyone went to this one place.
One place, yeah. So with the sort of cordyceps and ophiocordyceps, what they can do is they can produce these metabolites that are very much the same as sort of neurotransmitters. So then they can influence the behavior of whatever they're infecting. So you tend to see them with like ants, significantly lower body temperatures than us. And like I was saying with the thermal regulation. But they're able to sort of simulate the neurotransmitters and then cause muscle contractions and things. Can do the lockjaw onto leaves and things. The little example I've got here as well, you do see a sort of mushroom-like structure growing out of the head of the ant. So it is real life zombification.
I was about to say, this is the most, like, this is literally a zombie. It's something that is dead
it is a
but
zombie.
still moving.
Will it infect people though? No.
Oh.
I'm afraid.
I mean, good.
It's my my sole opinion. Please don't come for me if, like, in 50 years' time we all end up victim to this fungus. But just it's really hard for the fungi to jump species barriers like that. So fungi get 2.5 stars.
Even though it's unlikely, I do think it's very or impossible. I do think it's very cool that The Last of Us is based on real science.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. No, that is really good.
Yeah. It was something obviously I was aware of before we started chatting, but to really think about, the likelihood of something like this happening, which is low because, zombies. I didn't realise that the reason that they cause zombification was because they simulate neurotransmitters.
Yes.
So that's really cool.
It is really cool. It is really, really cool. So that's why fungi get 2.5 stars, because they do cause zombification in real life, but it's not going to be a human outbreak. I'm afraid. Not yet. It's real. It does happen. I don't think it could happen to humans.
I mean, good. All I can say is good.
Always reassuring. So my next example, moving on now, is to prions. So I'll just explain prions very briefly, because I feel like people might be a bit more unfamiliar with these. Now, these are another example of, like, weird microbiology. They get put under microbiology sometimes because they are microscopic. So prions are proteins that are misfolded that then induce the misfolding of other proteins. So you can see why these kind of weirdly sort of fall in a gap of, like, microbiology, protein biology, who knows.
But of all the things that are, in inverted commas, alive, this is the least alive thing.
Yeah, I would agree there.
Good.
They're so strange. Like, they are really, really strange. So we do have some examples of sort of fictional zombification with these. So Zombieland is one, and Dead Island, the video game.
Is that prions?
Yeah, they're both prions. So
I think I was aware of Zombieland, but I again played both Dead Island games. I didn't realise it was prions. I obviously skipped the cutscenes.
There you go. No time for that nonsense.
No, I just want to hit things with a bat.
Yeah. don't we all?
In the video game.
So there are some I was going to say great, but, like, this is from a very morbid, like, microbiology perspective, examples of prion epidemics. So one that is, like, absolutely sort of classic is the bovine spongiform encephalitis, or if you are from the UK, you probably know it very well as mad cow disease. Mm-hmm. So this was, you were slightly older than me, but we were both children.
Yeah,
sorry, I'm sorry. But I remember, my mum came home and threw out all the beef in the freezer. No beef for us.
It was a really terrifying time for anyone who is younger than 30, maybe. I don't know if you'd remember it if you were.
Well, I'm 33, and I do remember it, mainly because my mum had such a sort of dramatic reaction to it.
Yeah, so maybe if you're mid-20s, you wouldn't remember. I know the undergraduate students we teach they didn't know anything about it.
I feel so old.
I know, it's awful, isn't it? Time is a cruel mistress. But yeah, I remember it being a terrifying thing, and everyone was like, well, because also, like, science literacy, like, we didn't have the internet, we didn't have all these sorts of things, but there was no way of getting information outside of, being a scientist.
Yeah, it was just the newspaper and the 6 o'clock news.
Yeah, exactly.
A couple of other prion epidemics before I move on to this long time factor. So Kuru, which I believe is from a tribe in, like, Papua New Guinea.
Yes.
They used to eat the bodies of people, sometimes, like, sort of cannibalistic. It's the eating of nervous tissue, so brains and spinal cords, that sort of does it. Well, the last example has limited. It's in sheep, but it's scrapey in wee sheep.
And that leads to BSE, doesn't it?
They think that's how it made a species jump because, so at the time, it was common practice to feed livestock
random crap.
Animals would be eating the nervous system tissue, so brains, spinal cords, of other animals. Mm-hmm. So perhaps scrapie was the sort of original one, and then it transferred to cows when the cows were eating sheep brains.
Yeah, because scrapie isn't transmissible to humans, but
No.
BSE is.
Yes. And it led to a lot of sort of legislation change around what you can and can't feed livestock. Yeah, so prions are very, very strange things. Sometimes they can make species jumps, sometimes they can't. It depends, protein structure, similarity sort of thing. So they do require very specific conditions for transmission. So with bacteria, you can sneeze on someone and you can give them the bacterial infection that you've got. Prions are a bit more complicated. They're a bit more difficult to spread. So you need to consume, like we've said, eating. You need to eat the specifically affected part. So you need to eat the brain, for instance. The other one, which they make strong efforts to not happen now, but obviously at the time of mad cow disease, we didn't really know so much, but sort of transmission during medical procedures. So a lot of sort of disinfectant procedures are set up to kill bacteria, viruses, fungi, and bacterial spores, which are more resistant, but they're not set up to kill specific proteins.
No.
There is a chance that there's some protein residue left on a scalpel, and then the next person who has brain surgery after, you can transfer it across that way. There is massive efforts now to, there's different disinfectant procedures, and they basically like cook stuff, like autoclave it.
Yeah.
So it would disnature the protein. Denature, not disnature.
I'm disnatured. Yeah.
I'm just disnatured. What can I say? So they can destroy the protein, but at the time of sort of mad cow disease, we didn't really know that. So there are some rare cases of contaminated products sort of and transmitting sort of through medical procedures. So the thing about prions is they are like native proteins that then misfold slightly, changes sort of the overall structure.
Like tau and amyloid in
Yes.
like Alzheimer's disease
Yes,
and other neurodegenerative diseases.
Yeah, so, two of the big structures in protein chemistry is like the alpha helices and the beta pleated sheets. And if the structure is changed of those and they sort of switch from one to the other. But some of the protein is still sort of, the structure is still maintained. So I don't know. And this is very protein chemistry, not microbiology. So I am very sorry. No, it's fine.
Fields.
Yeah, I'm not sure how much would need to. Definitely the sort of misstructured bit would need to be there. I don't know, and I don't know the sort of dosing either that you need. Is one misfolded protein enough to induce that?
Well,
I'm not sure.
That is a common question in a lot. Again, I mainly work in Alzheimer's and dementia, and hyperphosphorylated tau and misfolded amyloid are also seen as prionic. So because of the way they spread and the way they accumulate, how much is like, do you just need one misfolded protein for it then to have a cascade, or does it need like to be a clump to happen? Like, it's a really interesting question in any disease which has a prionic element or a misfolded protein element.
So I think the last thing that I want to sort of mention about these prion diseases is what they actually do. So just because you were sort of mentioning dementia there, they sort of cause sort of holes in your brain, so which you see in dementia, sort of like the loss of
you get like vacuoles and breaking down eventually of brain structures.
So this is exactly what you see with the prion diseases. You'll see sort of big holes appear in the brain, which, not a neuroscientist, but that doesn't seem good.
Yeah, you kind of need your brain. If you are interested, again, you can look up lots of images of brain scans between healthy and dementia, but I assume also CJD brains.
And Kuru and Scrapie as well. But that takes a long time to happen as well. So it is very depressing if you're British and sort of lived through.
Because it's now.
If you lived through mad cow disease sort of era, there is some thought that down the line we will see massive impacts. It takes 50 years for it to develop. But maybe that, give it another, 20 years, and maybe there'll be a massive outbreak of these kind of BSE related dementia. But a lot of the sort of the prionic diseases is quite sad, and I would caution you before you put it in YouTube. But you can look up like cows with the disease, and they're wobbly and sort of hyper aggressive. So you can see this is very sort of zombie-ific behavior. So I do think we do see these prion diseases causing zombification almost. The transmission is quite difficult. So for that reason, I gave prions 4 stars out of 5, because I just think unless you see mass consumption of contaminated products,
Like, that's never happened before.
like beef burgers in the UK, it is not likely to happen.
So you mentioned about like the behaviour of the cows who have been infected with BSE, but they're still alive, right? Like it's not.
They are alive.
Traditional
They're not.
zombie.
They're not dead. They're not reanimated dead. They are still alive, but the sort of symptoms are zombie-esque. So the last sort of microbiology topic that I want to talk about is viruses. So there are loads of examples of fictional viral zombification. So I've got a list here, which is not exhaustive. So World War Z, Left 4 Dead, 28 Days Later, Dying Light, Day of the Dead, and then I've just put an ellipses because it goes on and on and on, and I couldn't fit them all in the notes. Viral epidemics, we have influenza epidemics. There's been bird flu, swine flu, Spanish flu, all the flus, HIV. Smallpox, not anymore. Thank you, vaccines.
Thank you, vaccines.
The only eradicated infectious disease.
I know, and a huge amount of global effort to do so, and a real success story.
Yeah. Measles, you get measles outbreaks still, thanks non-vaccinators.
How political do we want to get on this podcast?
I'm going to say it, vaccinate your children.
Yes, please, if you can.
If you can, yeah. So then it protects the people who can't be vaccinated.
Exactly.
Ebola is another infectious disease outbreak, and then COVID as well, COVID-19. But COVID is actually like a coronavirus, and we saw that before, like MERS and SARS. There's lots of viral epidemics. Viruses spread quite easily. They're very small, for one, so sort of the amount of bacteria that you could fit in an aerosol versus the amount of virus that are in the same droplet, you could fit a lot more virus in there. It's very easy to transmit between people, and because they mutate so rapidly, because they use our machinery, our cellular machinery to replicate. And they can have lots of different types of genomes. So, our genome is double-stranded DNA. It's nice and locked down, nice and stable. Viruses can have anything and everything, basically. So some of them have double-stranded DNA, some of them have single-stranded RNA, some of them have single-stranded DNA, and then that is more or less stable. So some viruses are more likely to have mutations at a more rapid rate than others.
So in terms of their mutability, is that the right word?
Yeah, sure.
Oh, okay. In terms of that, is it similar in the way that double-stranded DNA viruses are less likely to mutate, or is it about consistent through all of them?
No. So double-stranded DNA viruses would be less likely to mutate. It does have benefits to sort of having that genome.
Like in terms of it's harder to break down DNA. And
Yes, the high mutability, diversity is massive, which means we don't have a strong immune response against them because they can just slip past. A little mutation is just enough to slip past our immune response. The sort of amount of diversity encapsulated within viruses is insane. Like you can't imagine how much diversity is in there.
I 100% believe you, just because there are so many viruses, and also that they do mutate so quickly. The whole reason we have flu vaccines every year, right, is because they mutate so quickly.
And I'll come on to flu again in a minute.
I keep preempting you.
No, it's fine. Don't even worry about it. Influenza is a great virus to talk about.
It's A star, 10 out of 10 virus.
Yeah. They also have quite a short latency period. The latency period means it sort of infects your body, it's reproducing in your body, and then it becomes at a level enough where you're coughing it out, where you're breathing it out, sort of thing. And you're often well enough in that period to go around coughing on your co-workers in the office, for example. Now, we were talking about sort of brain infections with prions just now, but you can also get brain infections with viruses and bacteria, but we'll leave that to a side for a minute.
We've left bacteria behind.
Yeah, bacteria have gone. They got 1 star, we've moved on. So you can get viral encephalitis, which is they infect your brain, they cause swelling of the brain. It's actually not that uncommon, and it causes sort of psychosis-like symptoms. But I have some examples of viruses that I particularly want to sort of pick up on as good examples. So influenza, much love for influenza. So influenza has this really cool segmented RNA genome. So its genome isn't overly stable because it's RNA-based rather than DNA-based. And it's also in about 7 pieces. Because it's RNA-based, it can sort of accumulate small mutations over time, which is called antigenic drift. And that's why we need seasonal flu vaccination updates, because from the previous year, it's accumulated enough sort of mutations that it won't be covered by last year's vaccines. Now, the other type of mutation that it's can be impacted by is called antigenic shift. And this is when two separate flu species infect one host. And they can then, when they sort of reassemble after sort of replicating in a cell, you can have like 4 segments from one genome and 3 segments for the other, or, you know, endless combinations. And that's called shift.
That's interesting. I didn't realize I could do that. That's really cool.
Well, I'm going to add another sort of aspect to that is that these influenza strains can also infect different species. Bird flu and swine flu being the 2 major ones. So avian flu, you can have some crossover with pig flu, and then you can also have some crossover with human flu. So if they get the sort of right combination of bits, like a pig flu can then infect humans, which is what we saw in swine flu in 2009, and we've seen in other influenza epidemics.
That is very cool to know. I didn't realise that's how that happened. I thought it was just like a random mutation that like flus would get.
It's this sort of reassortment of the genome. So it's mostly pigs and chickens, because you can imagine the sort of level of human contact that we have with those species. Yeah. But you can also, there's influenzas that infect like dolphins, ferrets, like all sorts. But just the sort of chance of that sort of co-infecting is lower because we have less contact.
My brain just went to like a little ferret with like a little hot water bottle and a blankie on.
Give him a Lancet.
I know.
I love ferrets.
I do too.
Fun fact though, I did get swine flu in 2009. And I wasn't able to pick up my AS level results because I was really, really ill. It was rough.
Really?
And that was the first time that we had like Tamiflu en masse, which is like an antiviral for flu. Yes. Not overly effective, unfortunately. And that's because they're using our cells. So you can't target the machinery that the virus is using to replicate, because it's our machinery, and you would also kill us off. So viruses are much harder to treat, which is another point in the favour of zombification.
Oh, sounds like someone's got a favourite.
My next one is the herpes simplex virus. So lots of people know this as cold sores or genital sores as well. Shout out HSV2.
Why are we shouting them out?
I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of stigma around it. So
what, herpes?
Yeah, herpes.
It's unbelievably common.
It is. I have lip cold sores, and there was this sort of narrative that herpes simplex virus 1 causes cold sores, herpes simplex virus 2 causes the genital sores. But they've actually sort of swapped about so much that, because no one uses a dental dam. Someone asked me that at a sexual health history one time, and I was just like, well, no, I don't even know where you access one of those.
No, I have no idea.
Who does that?
It's similar to like a femidom. You know, like I wouldn't even know where to buy one. I know you can buy them in like pharmacies and stuff, but like like we had a sexual health like educator come in and talk to us about, like, we were a girls' school, so they did talk about dental dams and stuff. But even they were sort of like, and it was like I couldn't even find one, so I've cut up a condom. To show you what it works
that's the other
like.
option.
Yeah.
Don't even worry about it. No, so the thing is...
please do worry about sexually transmitted infections.
No. So this is... Let me finish the advice.
Apologies.
I hadn't finished. I hadn't been like, just spread it. So the thing is, if you don't have active sores, the likelihood of transmitting is like extremely low.
Okay.
They do think like if you're living with someone and you are infected with herpes simplex virus 1 or 2, that over time they might be exposed. But unless you have active sores, you can't spread it really.
Okay.
On like a brief contact. No kissing. That's how I think I got... Wait, hold on.
Oh, that's another story. Hang on.
No, so my nan had cold sores, and my nan used to be like, oh, I can't kiss you, I've got a cold sore. But she sort of used to cheek kiss you, so I think my nan gave it to me.
She used to cheek kiss you?
Yeah, on the cheek.
Oh, cheek. I thought you said cheat, as in like cheating on the exam. I was like, she was like, I'm not allowed to kiss you, but I'm going to do it in secret.
God bless her. I think my nan gave me cold sores.
So for the 1 and the 2, is that not true? Like the 1 is lip and 2 is genitals?
No. I think, I don't know where that came from, but basically there's 2 types of virus. I don't know how they decided that one, because if I had a cold sore and I went down on someone, they could potentially then be infected in their genitals with what I had on my lip. But then equally, if they had a sore on their genitals and I went down on them, my lip could be then infected with the one that was on your... So it doesn't really matter. Do you know what I mean?
But either can cause cold sores.
Yeah, I mean, cold sore, it's the same thing. It's on a mucous membrane either side. It just, if it's on the top or the bottom.
It's just the point of origin.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. And then they'll go dormant in neurons. So it's usually like the facial ganglion on lips. I don't know what it is downstairs.
Downstairs.
I don't.
In the basement.
I don't know this basement neurology. Yeah, so it will stay dormant in nerve cells, wherever it is. No follow-up questions for that.
Well, no, I was just trying to understand the nomenclature of like 1 and 2. As to
basically it doesn't matter. That's what I'm saying. There's 2 subtypes. Yeah. They're slightly different.
But they can be on either.
But they can be either your lips or
your dicks.
Or
or your labia.
We said no rude words in the podcast.
No, dick isn't rude. Could be short for Richard.
That's fine. So on reactivation, though, because it would normally come down the sort of ganglion to your lip in this example, but sometimes it can accidentally go up. It can track up the neuron and then cause encephalitis. Herpes encephalitis is actually quite common, but it does cause, so it's really, really bad for causing behavioural change. So it causes like hyperactivity, personality changes, which the clinical way of saying it is like inappropriate behavior. So you'll become quite aggressive and like quite sexually inappropriate as well.
I was going to ask you, like, because inappropriate behavior could be anything.
Yeah, so you become quite aggressive, especially with herpes simplex encephalitis. And yeah, you sort of have psychotic behaviours induced. But I think there are cases where people have had herpes simplex encephalitis and been admitted to psych wards thinking that someone's having like, and I'm not a psychiatrist, this isn't, a sort of psychotic break sort of thing. And they just have encephalitis from a cold sore. So yeah, it's particularly like predominant for those behaviour changes. So I hope you see where this is fitting into the zombie narrative.
I'm tracing the line. Yeah, I'm getting there.
So my last virus that I want to talk about is a pretty cool virus.
I've just seen what it is, and it's not cool.
No, it is cool. Just think of it from the perspective of a microbiologist.
Okay, I'm imagining I'm a microbiologist. I'm terrified.
It's rabies. So rabies is a very interesting virus. So the other viruses that I've talked about are kind of like these icosahedral, sort of roundy, sort of hexagonic viruses. But rabies is quite unique. It's like a bullet shape, so that's quite cool. It's got an RNA genome as well. So this is, like you mentioned the term zoonosis earlier. So this is a massive, sort of very famous case of zoonosis. It's not very common in the UK at all, really. But in like the States, squirrels, raccoons, not opossums though.
Why do they not get rabies?
Their body temperature is too cold to get rabies. I love possums.
But they can't get rabies.
And they can't get rabies. Yeah, I mean, that's cool, right? Because that means that no one could be like, Eleanor, don't touch that possum. It might have rabies. Because I'm like, no, they can't get rabies. Let me touch it.
I think there's other reasons they would say, Eleanor, please don't touch that possum.
Wide range of mammals can get infected with rabies. Probably one of the most famous ones is dogs because of like the amount of human contact that we have with dogs and the sort of social behaviours that we have with dogs as well. We always want to touch dogs. But rabies causes some really unusual symptoms as well. So it does infect the central nervous system. And it really sort of modifies the host behaviour. And again, this is because of encephalitis, the swelling of the brain. So it starts off with this sort of nausea and vomiting. It then sort of affects your movement. So you're a bit wobbly, but also like quite violent movements because you just haven't got that control anymore. You also get really excited, sort of hyperactivity. And then there's this really quite unique and strange fear of water and like an inability to swallow. And this is another video that I would say watch with caution because I did watch it because I have a morbid curiosity and I'm a microbiologist, but I have watched a video of a person with rabies. It's deeply upsetting.
I think I've seen something like that.
Yeah, it's very upsetting. I think it was a man in Iraq. He was trying to drink water because he's severely dehydrated, and that's why you kind of get the frothing at the mouth because your saliva's got no water left in it. But he can't drink the water, like it just keeps coming back up. then as it sort of progresses, you sort of get some paralysis, like you can't move specific parts of your body, you get confused, and eventually you lose consciousness and die. And I think that's why that video is also so upsetting, because you kind of know what's going to happen to that man. It's a horrible disease. It's very interesting, but very horrible. And once symptoms appear, there are some people who claim that they've cured rabies, but there's been like a handful of cases. Sometimes they reduce people's body temperature like really, really low. And there's maybe been a couple of cases where people have been cured. That's an exception to the rule. Like generally, once you've got those symptoms, you're not coming back. Highly transmissible from any contact with these animals.
Yep. Again, zombies. Yeah.
So you see where I'm going. So I think rabies is a very good template for sort of zombie films.
Yeah, it's just in my mind, and I know that like I haven't seen that many people or animals that have rabies, but the behavior that's exhibited is very like obviously unusual and quite big movement and things like that, and that is very zombie.
Yes. Yeah. The dragging of one leg or whatever.
But also like in like 28 Days Later with like the people who sprint and they're like sort of a bit wild and that kind of behavior.
Yeah, they're sort of aggressive, I think. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's that weird sort of violence, but very uncoordinated.
Yeah,
that's how I sort of think of zombies. But for this reason, and I think we see this in media as well, that viruses are the most dominant sort of template for zombie epidemics, and I think I would give them 5 out of 5, because I think all we're missing is the sort of reanimated dead concept, but everything else we are sort of seeing with these viruses. Good host range, highly susceptible population, easy transmissibility, a lack of decent treatments. Like, these are all things we see with viral pathogens.
So if there is going to be a zombie apocalypse, it's likely to be a virus.
I would put my money on viruses, yeah.
Right. I don't know who'd take that bet.
Yeah. Let me know. I'll give you a £5.
A £5. We're going to have the breakdown society and everyone's going to die.
Yeah, but I'll get that £5 back. On the scale of sort of the different pathogens I've talked about, bacteria least likely, fungi least likely for a human zombie epidemic. Prions, fingers crossed. Don't know.
Yeah, prions a difficult one.
Yeah, kind of like you don't want to acknowledge it because, maybe
it's so real.
In 20 years' time. But I'd like to stay in denial, just in case.
You're more likely to get dementia.
Yeah, who knows where
Be worried about those prions.
And then viruses, I think, 5-star. That's where I would put my money.
Brilliant.
So that's the end.
I suppose being very chipper about the breakdown of society and people dying, becoming reanimated.
Yeah,
zombies.
I think this is the whole thing about like the field of microbiology, and in a way, it's something that really drew me towards it. Is like these tiny microscopic organisms you can't even see rule so much of your life, and you don't even know it.
Thanks, Eleanor. That was so interesting. I learned an awful lot about microbiology. So we're coming to the second part of our podcast, which is where we discuss the LGBTQ plus experience, our individual experiences. So, Eleanor, how do you define yourself, first of all?
Oh my God. I'm indefinable. Yeah. So I would say, gosh, it's quite a heavy question sometimes. Growing up, I think I definitely define myself as bisexual. I still do define myself as bisexual because, one, that is like the only term that I had accessible to me at the time. I really got into Tumblr when I was like a late teen, sort of young adult. And that was a big exposure to sort of queer theory, queer ideas and media and stuff. But at the time, you barely knew the term bisexual.
Yes.
And then the other reasons why I still identify with that, even though maybe if I sort of had known the term pansexual, maybe I would have identified with that a bit more. But the other reason is I do feel that my attraction to sort of more feminine people and then more masculine people is slightly different. So that maybe fits a bit more with a bisexual label rather than a pansexual label. And then the third and final reason is that I like the colour of the flags better.
You are 100% not the first person who's told me that.
Yeah, I don't. I just like it feels more concordant. I don't know why, but there we go.
Not a fan of yellow.
The yellow just throws it for me. No tea, no shade, no pink lemonade. But that's but for me it is kind of that sort of differing attraction to sort of femininity and masculinity more than than any other reason, kind of.
Yeah,
And the sort of, you know, growing with that label as your formative years, I think that makes a big change, because I know you spoke about last time sort of coming quite late to that sort of label.
Yeah.
But for me, I think I was about 14 when I sort of realised that the attraction I was experiencing wasn't just towards sort of boys. So yeah, growing up with that term and sort of fitting that. I don't know how to, like, you're young and you sort of, I remember saying to like a couple of my friends, like, I don't think I'm straight. Like, I think I might be bisexual. And then you sort of grow up with that label, and then there's a sort of like attachment to it almost.
Familiarity and comfort in it. To say that you're a queer person is such a big step.
Yeah.
That I know that a lot of people start with one label and then realise that it's different, and like they might go from bisexual to lesbian or gay, or they might go from like being a lesbian to being trans, or you know, there's a lot of different evolutions. But if you find something that fits you and it still fits you, why would you change?
Yeah. But I do think the other thing, really, this has only been over the past couple of years, is I've sort of really felt a strong affinity to the label queer. I don't 100% know what that is, but I do. And I know I've spoken to like other friends and peers, and they don't like that label, and that's fine. But I feel for me, it kind of, because sometimes I feel a bit wavy about gender as well. So I feel like the label queer kind of encapsulates that. Like, it's just sort of, it is just a good catch-all label, isn't it? And I think for me, over the past year or two, that's something that I felt very comfortable with. So I think, I would describe myself as bisexual still, but also a very strong affinity with the term queer.
I think queer is a great word. And I use it probably more than I would say the entire acronym, and I know that that's probably bad because I'm lazy, but also encompasses the fact that you might be multiple things. I think that's it. Is this sort of like, I don't fit with labels, and I hate saying that, because I think that was one of my first like exposures to bisexuality in media. I was like, I just don't like labels, so I don't like to say that. But I think it is just that sort of catch-all label for like this sort of non-cis, non-heterosexual identity. Agreed. My mum also hates the term queer.
Well, it's a reclaimed slur, right?
Yeah.
But for some people, that reclamation's not for them, and that's fine.
I think she still attributes it to like, you know, the 80s and 90s when people were just, or even far back as like the 40s and 50s. When people would just use it as an insult. To say that you're not normal. And I think she has trouble getting over that. Whereas I love it, and I say it, and I can see her cringe when I say queer, but that's fine.
And some organisations don't want to use it, and some do. So I'm co-chair of our staff network at the University of Exeter, and we do use the Q in the acronym. But I know some, they don't use the Q in their acronym, but they specifically put a bit on the website so saying we don't use queer because some people find it offensive.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that is fair enough. So sorry.
Again, you have to form your own identity and your own acceptance of things. You don't owe everyone your definition, right? So it's one of those things where you should feel comfortable sharing what you're comfortable sharing with, and who you're comfortable sharing with. But sometimes you don't want to have to get into a whole long discussion about, you know, what you are and what you define as, and sharing everything about yourself. So somebody says, "Oh, as a queer person," and then everyone goes, "Okay, there's something there. We'll just move on." And like that's what I like.
Yeah, because it's such a personal thing. You don't like. I don't know. Does everybody need to know your business?
No, no one should know.
Yeah,
be secret.
Yeah, shh. Keep it secret.
Keep it secret. I think I identify the same way in terms of I grew up with it, but also one thing you mentioned about like the definition of bisexuality, which depending on who you talk to tends to be different.
Okay,
like, everyone seems to define bisexuality differently. I assume there is like a standard definition, but...
Oh, yeah, so there is actually a bisexual manifesto.
Oh, is there?
Yeah. Oh, this is something I learned in my Tumblr days. So there is like a bisexual manifesto because, and it's quite, I mean, I say quite old, but not like not an ancient text, more like it was written before I was born sort of thing. Because a lot of, especially in this sort of like Tumblr era of queer discourse, I guess, is a lot of people, especially with the sort of increasing popularity in the term pansexual, people would argue that bisexual reinforce the gender binary, which I personally do not think it does at all. The bisexual more refers to attraction to the same as myself and different from myself, not men and women, and nothing in between. And the Bisexual Manifesto actually says that, and it's quite, like I said, I think written in like the early 90s, maybe 80s, is maybe I'll Google it later.
Yeah, we'll Google it later.
But it does say like the same as and different to yourself.
That's good to know, because a lot of people say that bisexuality is exclusionary to like non-binary and trans people, which is 100% not true.
No, I really don't feel that, because that also kind of like just invalidates, because like, so first of all, like trans identity is like trans women are women.
Yeah.
So there we go.
Like I said, this is not my definition.
No,
this is
100%.
the internet and other people.
Yeah, and then I think like, I don't know, personally, I think that non-binary people are included within the I don't want to sit here and be like, I'm attracted to them, I'm attracted to them, I'm attracted to them, because that just feels like a very different podcast.
There's always this like option to cause rifts between people, especially in the community, which is weird. And
yes.
I define the same way you do, which is it's about differing attractions between different genders rather than the fact I am attracted to them. Like, I feel I am attracted to masculine and feminine and non-binary people in different ways.
Yeah.
But I am attracted to people of those genders.
Yeah. The attraction is not defined by gender, but it is different depending on people's differing gender expression.
Yeah. Well,
job's a good one.
Job's a good. Well,
solved it.
Define yourself how you like. Like, no one can stop you. I'm not your dad. You can do what you like.
I love my dad. I was going to say, screw you, Dad, but no, I do like my dad.
Okay, good. We've downgraded from love to like, but that's fine.
Love you, Steve.
So let's talk, and this is something that I think is always going to be discourse in the community, and something that you have expressed a lot in your thing, but you are a bisexual person who's married to a masculine person.
Yes.
So talk to us about that, about how you feel about perception.
Yeah, it's so it comes with a lot of what I would call like bisexual guilt. So I've been with Dan now 12 years going on, and like I'm not that old, so it's a lot of my sort of like adult life. We've been together. And that does then come with a lot of privilege, because you sort of automatically have straight passing privilege. You never have that sort of, that fear of, mentioning your same-sex partner because your partner's opposite sex. There's no sort of, you can bring your partner to work functions and you're not outing yourself automatically, these sorts of things. So that is a privilege. That is, like, I don't have to feel afraid in public to hold my partner's hand, this sort of thing. And I've worked places where I haven't felt entirely comfortable to come out, and then it's fine because you just hide, but then you feel like you're hiding, and you're like not your most authentic self, because there's part of yourself that you're not being truthful about almost. And there's always that option to never come out in high-risk situations, and you don't have to, which again is both a blessing and a curse, because there's that option to sort of almost not take the risky move, but then you sort of live with this sort of, I don't know how to explain it, almost like a sort of like a non-complete self sort of thing. And I think as I've got older, like LGBT activism has been a lot more important to me, to the point where I'm now co-chair of our staff network. And I think for me, it became a lot more important to be authentic about that. Yeah, I do. Yeah, so you sort of have this, just like this sense of guilt and this sort of almost like need sometimes that you need to prove your queerness, which is just a bit of a headache sometimes. But I do often find that it's not often other queer people that I need to prove my queerness to. It's straight people who just sort of, I don't know, maybe they just can't fathom sort of being queer, and you spend so much of your life around heterosexual media, that it's not something that you need to consider. But I've had straight people tell me that I was making up for attention, that, how do you know? Like, you just think, how do you know you're straight? Like, I don't know. It's just such an innate part of your being that you just know, like, I know what I experience, I know how I feel, and I know that I'm queer. But yeah, and I do, like, sometimes I go into queer spaces and I feel really quite self-conscious, but then very, very rarely do people sort of actually say anything. I was saying before we sort of started this recording, I have a friend who's bisexual, and she's in a relationship with another woman. And then, so she always gets referred to as lesbian. But then I've been told, because I'm married to Wee Dan.
Wee Dan.
Shout out Wee Dan. I'm not going to say I love him on podcast because that's cringe. Anyway, but then I've been told, well, you're heterosexual now. It's like, I guarantee you I'm not. ASMR.
Look at me.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes I forget. And I wouldn't be like, I don't know. For me, I think, in my sort of how I'm perceived, I think I'm just a wee guy doing my thing. And then I go home, where I don't really have a lot of queer friends. I have one queer friend from my hometown. And I go home and my mum says to me, doesn't Dan prefer it when you dress like a woman? And I'm like, oh, thanks, Mum. These are my favourite trousers.
As I sit here looking at you, your Evangelion sweater and
it turns
combat
out
trousers.
my default gender expression is 12-year-old boy. I'm okay with that.
No, it's great. So I think as someone who is, like you say, co-chair of the staff LGBTQ plus network, how does it feel to be so open at work while teaching as part of the network at the university? Like, because obviously you have to be somewhat open in your role to be representative and to do a good job at repping.
Yeah.
So how's that experience been, and how do you feel about it?
I mean, it's strange in ways, because sometimes you tell people, or like, I mean, it's in my email signature and so on. Like, I'm not like hiding that I'm co-chair of the staff network. And sometimes you tell people and you can see the little like cogs turning behind your eyes. They're like, you're
one of them queers.
She has a husband, but she's chair of the staff LGBT network.
I would argue that more people at work know that you're co-chair of the network than know about Dan.
Really?
I don't know.
I
mean, you talk about that more at work than you do about Dan.
Really?
Like, obviously in our little team, we all know each other quite well, so we know each other's like partners and stuff. But I would say, like, in terms of the wider university.
Yeah. I suppose I don't go to like the equality groups. I'm like, let me tell you about my husband. Yeah. I'm like, so let's not discriminate against LGBT people, please. I don't know. Sometimes, you see people's cogs turning, trying to compute it all. I guess it's nothing that I've ever really hidden. I feel like I was saying before, like, you get a lot of privilege for being in a very straight passing relationship. And I think it's good to use that privilege and that voice that you have for people who aren't so confident or able to sort of stand up for LGBT rights and representation. So I feel it feels like a blessing in some ways to sort of be able to use that sort of safety for the good of the community, which sounds like very overdramatic, but
I don't think it is. I think that, we have to acknowledge that certain groups of people are going to have an easier time than others, especially right now when, trans people are under attack from multiple fronts in multiple places. Yeah. It is, as a community, it is our job to help those people
together. Yeah.
And to rep for them when it's like you say, if people aren't out fully at work, or they're stealth, or there's like,
or they feel scared and under threat, which is like legit. I know people, who aren't happy to be out, and then if you're not happy to be out, it's then much harder to sort of stand up in meetings and say, hey, that's not inclusive, or like that's not. So I think, having that sort of safety and privilege allows you to do these things. But I do really strongly feel that the community aspect of queerness is so important. And I think, yeah, like I said before, like all of the successes with civil rights have been fought together and won together. And I really passionately believe there's no LGB without the T, which is, I think, important to say at the moment, sadly.
Definitely. And we also need to better rep for asexual people.
Yeah, 100%. So I think another sort of case where we see this is with the conversion therapy. So the two groups that are most at risk of that are trans people and then asexual people. And we still don't have a fully inclusive conversion therapy ban. Oh, I'm feeling sad reflecting on how privileged I am. Not like sad, but you know, you just think, God, like not everybody has this.
Well, I like I said last time, I am unbelievably lucky that my family are so accepting and that they've always been accepting. And I'm pretty sure my mum knew I was queer before I did, because she's my mum and she knows me too well. But you have to know that you're privileged in order to put that aside so you can help people.
Yeah.
And it's hard because, you know, even being in a university, we're extremely privileged because, you know, we are people in a quite accepting environment. I know it's not accepting to everyone, but in most cases, if you're a queer person, the university will not be actively trying to fire or to discriminate against you.
It's just a straight passing privilege, just keeps coming round and sort of...
I think you're very hard on yourself when it comes to your privilege in inverted commas, because you work so hard for the co-chair position as well as everything else you do outside, and I think that, you know, it's great that you do. I'm happy you do, and you've honestly made me a better person for dragging me to these... No, not dragging me, for including me more in these things, like including this podcast. The original inception of this podcast was it was the Out There Festival, where you came up with this idea for a series of mini talks by queer people, similar to what we're doing, which is talking about areas of their field that they could disseminate to a lay audience. So I did speak about Jurassic Park, but also other movies in terms of genetics. You talk about zombies and like we just
this
done.
Exact talk.
Not this exact.
I have
it's more of a conversation.
One idea.
But like I probably wouldn't have done that without your asking. I wouldn't have like put myself forward for it. But because I think in the same way, I sometimes feel like an imposter in my own identity.
But I think this really comes back to this sort of empowerment of community, because I don't think without Claire and Prism, I don't think I would have been so empowered to sort of begin these talks and stuff. And these sort of small empowerments really sort of snowball. So I'm really hoping with this podcast that we can, you know, have junior scientists on, people who need that sort of empowerment.
Eleanor, thank you so much for your information about zombies. Something to give me nightmares. And thank you so much for sharing about your experience and all the great work that you do. And obviously, I'm very thankful that you included me in this podcast, of all things.
Stop.
I mean, Eleanor and I have been friends for a couple of years at this point, like not a huge amount of time, but it has honestly, it's been a fun project to get started with. So
yeah, I'm enjoying it.
Long may it continue, hopefully. No one may listen to us. It might just be you and I talking in a room every month with someone else occasionally.
It's going to be great. I have high hopes. And I think it's nice to see like an idea that I had a while back but never really put any sort of wheels to. It's good to see it sort of slowly come to fruition.
But thank you so much if you have listened to us gabber on forever.
Right. Yeah, ta-ra, bab.
Ta-ra. And we'll see you next time with a guest, hopefully.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. Bye-bye.
Ciao.